Hello and welcome to Conversations with Creatives. My name is Esther Stanford and today I am joined by author and purpose coach Hannah Miller. Now, Hannah, I've wanted to have on this show since I started. I knew I would want to talk to her because I think that one of the trickiest things when you're a creative is building your own body of work. How do you make things work? You normally are going to have to be multi-hyphenate. It's very rare that anybody can be just one thing. And also, most of us aren't just one thing. And so what I love about Hannah's work is it's about finding the purpose that you have. She also has this belief that if you lean into your strengths and not your weaknesses, it'll get you further. Like, for example, if you're very good at English and not so good at maths, really lean into your English and be brilliant at that and don't worry so much about the maths. She does something called the Clifton Strengths test, which helps you identify what your natural strengths are, which was life-changing for me, and you'll hear about that in the conversation. She's also an author. Her book, The Purpose Pursuit, is fantastic, and we discuss the writing process for that, how she went about it, how she got the book deal. She's very inspiring and full of energy, full of positivity. And I loved chatting with her. Also, as a side note, Hannah and I actually went to school together. She was the year below me. And so that is sort of loosely referenced. And second of all, there is a moment in the episode where her phone goes, and I've edited the conversation out, but I couldn't edit out the look of panic across her face because it cuts over what I'm saying. So you'll suddenly see this sort of look of panic on her face, and then the conversation will continue. And that's what that's about. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the conversation. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having
excited
me.
to talk to you. I started this series because so many people were saying to me, like, I don't know how to make my life work as a creative. I don't know how to build a life. And it quickly became apparent to me, and having done work with you myself, that I knew there was no linear path for anything that's artistic, but also I think sometimes when you know what your strengths are and what your values are and what your purpose are, then you can build the life that suits you. And as a creative, and for me, that falls into all kinds of different things. You're a creative. You met Deborah Mead the other day. I always think she's a creative. I know, how exciting. And I think there's something really lovely about understanding who you are, what your purpose is, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and so that you can then build a creative life in a way that suits you. And that's really why I wanted to speak to you, because I think the work you do is invaluable. How did you come to begin this work?
Okay, so can I just start by saying something else, which is I find it so interesting we're talking about being a creative.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many, there's obviously loads of people who listen to your podcast who would know that they're creatives, but I think it's sometimes one of those words that makes people exclude themselves from that.
Yes.
There are obviously people who work in creative industries, but I would really struggle to put myself into the creative category. And yet, rationally, I play 3 instruments. I like to write. I do things that are marginally creative. But when I think of creative people, I think of people like you. I think of people who are songwriters. I don't think of me. And I think the first thing I just want to say is that I think there is a niche that is creative industry, but I think everyone's creative. So that's just me just getting on my soapbox for a second.
Totally agree.
Like my son, who is a scientist and works in malaria vaccinations, there is an element of his work which involves like creative response to a major global health challenge, that I think he would put himself in a category of saying, oh, I'm a scientist. And I just think there is a creative part of each of us. I mean, I'm a person of faith. So I think like if we've got a creator, then everyone is creative. So that's the first thing I just want to say, is that I've always struggled with that word. And if you're listening to this and feel like an imposter around creativity, if you have any kind of ability to solve a problem or enjoy something beautiful or do something that involves imagining something differently, whether that is an engineering problem or a maths problem or a drama that you're writing, that's creative. So that's
Totally
a side
agree.
point. If that's
Totally
all right
agree.
for you
And
to
actually,
say.
just I had a guest on a couple of months ago, brilliant author, Rebecca Hemmings, and she works in diversity. She goes out and she talks to people about diversity. And when I first asked her to come on, she said, "What? Why do you want me? I'm not a creative." But she started out in theatre. She's a writer and she's an author, and she's created these businesses. And I totally agree.
And some people might do it for a living and some people might have it as a big part of their life, but everybody needs a creative outlet. And it actually isn't about the outcome. It's about the doing of the thing that is creative and playful and allows us to use a part of who we are that is in every single one of us. I really believe that. And so, yes, it is a group of people that do, but I think there's also creativity as well. So how did I first find myself doing the work I do? So the work I do now, just for clarity, I've written a book called The Purpose Pursuit, but the work I do, whichever kind of setting I'm in, is helping people understand who they are better and then work or live more effectively. So it could be a team, it could be a leader, it could be a person who's wondering about what's next. So it comes in all those different forms. And like most things in my life, I fell into it slightly by accident. So I hope that's a hopeful thing for people to hear. I think things have been anything but linear in my life, and it actually came out of a very hard season. It came out of a period of life that I'd really loved. I was an assistant head teacher. I loved my job. I loved working with other teachers. I loved helping people teach more effectively. I loved working in a school that was in a really tough part of the city. I loved it. And then all of a sudden, I didn't love it anymore. And I didn't love it anymore because two things. One, I knew I was coming to the end of a learning curve and it was starting to feel a bit stagnant, which happens to everybody at some point. And some people are happy with that. And they're like, I'm okay with, plateauing. I'm not wired like that. And it also became a really hard place to work. And I was quite bruised. And it's interesting. I look back at that time now, and again, there'll be people listening who are maybe in this kind of season. I would never have wished it on anybody. Like, I was pretty heartbroken. Plus, my father-in-law had just died running in the park, and my best friend had a brain aneurysm. So in that particular year, life had thrown some hard stuff, and work had become really difficult. And although I would never want to go back to how that felt, it probably pushed me to make a decision about what I was going to do next, probably 2 or 3 years earlier than I might have done. So I do think sometimes, adversity and things that are hard sharpen our focus on what on earth am I going to do next. And what happened was, essentially, I remembered I'd done this work on strengths many years ago. Strengths is a tool that helps people see who they are at their best, what their preferences are, and why certain things come naturally, why certain things irritate us, why some things are the conditions we need to thrive. And I honestly remember this moment. I was at school and I was walking down a corridor and I had a bit of a light bulb moment where I remembered my strengths, and I remember thinking, that's why I'm so unhappy right now. Because the person who I am is not getting to have an outlet. And it was like a aha to myself, like a little epiphany. And off the back of that, one thing led to another. And I thought, I think I want to learn how to use this tool properly. I want to go and get trained. I wonder whether I could use this. And initially I thought maybe I'd use it with other schools. Maybe I'd use it with other teachers. And actually I do some work in education, but not loads. That snowballed into what I do now. So a little aha moment that made me think, this is aligned with the kind of thing I like to do, helping people grow. I wonder whether that's what I could do next. And I literally followed the next step in front of me.
And do you think that is within your personality that you would then take that next step? Or because some people wouldn't, would they? They'd have the thought and they'd go, oh, it'll be a bit difficult, bit this, bit. Do you think that's in your personality? Do you think it was the circumstances that were happening in your life at the time? Do you think it was both?
Mm-hmm. Good question. I think it's both. Like, I do think you're right. There are some people who you and I can probably think of people we know who have great ideas or great potential, but fair enough that they do not want to choose something that feels a bit more risky. And so sometimes that happens unintentionally because they just keep rolling, their life just rolls around. And other people, they do actually make a decision to say, do you know what? I could do that, but I actually do not want the instability that might come, because in reality, there is instability that comes with stepping out. I had a bit of a two-way track. So what actually happened at the time, I think there's also my dad thought I was a bit crazy, like, and other members of wider family would have thought, what are you doing? My husband has a really quite high appetite for risk. He's a very steady Eddie. He's not called Eddie, he's called Sam. Steady Sam.
Steady Sam.
Steady Sam. But he has got probably a more adventurous or more pro-risk than I am. So rather than being, we need to make sure this works, he's always been really unbothered about money and unbothered about that kind of stuff. So he was like, why not? What's the worst that can happen? You've got a profession you can go back to. And I think sometimes people don't step out because they make the risks bigger and they don't really consider, well, what happens if this goes wrong? I just go get a job, or I go to, I wasn't putting my house on the line. I wasn't borrowing £100,000 from the bank that I couldn't afford to pay back. It was really going to be mainly a bit of embarrassment if it hadn't worked out than anything else. I didn't really, and obviously I wasn't going to be contributing financially to the home. So I think there is a personality element of, I'm going to give this a go, but there is also a decision-making process we can go through that I think can help us take those risks at the right time. There was a moment where I had this thing where a job came up for a deputy headship in a school that I'd done loads of work with. And without sounding big-headed, I knew that if I applied, I'd get it because they knew me already. And it was like this fork in the road. It was literally, I was filling in the form and I was like, I can do this, or I can take the road less travelled. And my husband was like, you can do it if you like, but I think you're making a mistake. I don't think you should do this. You'll always have something like this you can go back to. I think you need to go for this and get it out your system. And I worked out what I needed to earn, like as in the short, not what I wanted to earn, but what I needed to contribute to the family. And how could I make that in the short run whilst I grew some time to begin to build a business. So I think the circumstances, I think there's the people that you have around you. Like if you are in a partnership with somebody who's like, we cannot take that risk, that's obviously going to make it harder. And there is how absolutely sick and tired are you of how tough things are, and how much has life thrown at you that makes you consider doing something different. Now, if you ask me right now, Esther, this is a long answer, I'm beginning to feel the winds of change again. I don't know whether that means I've just got to bed in again and go, actually, I'm going to go again. Do I feel like I've got the confidence? No, I probably feel at the moment really scared. But I'm also feeling the weight of having run my own business for 10 years and feeling like, do I want to do that for the next 10? I'm at a bit of a reassessment point. I've not really said that out loud, but here we are. Let's tell the podcast.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. I mean, there's a few things I want to sort of highlight.
Sorry, that was a long answer.
No, it was a brilliant answer. One of the things that struck me was, have you ever read The Alchemist by Paul Coelho?
I have skimmed it, but I haven't read it. I do know of some of the content.
And it talks a lot about, just as you're about to go on the path that you're supposed to be going on, you will have an offer of something else. That has happened to me a couple of times this year, and I've had to go, no, I don't know what, it's not that. It's not that. And it's that sort of self-trust and that kind of listening to your intuition, I think, where you go, that could work, but it's not where my heart is. And like you say, you need that support. You know, ideally you've got that support around you to do that. I remember years ago I had a drama school for about 10 years and then I decided it's done. I'm going to hand it over, but it's done for me. And a few people said to me, you're mad. You're mad. Why are you giving that up? I mean, somebody did say to me, it's money for old rope. And I was like, it really isn't. I work my arse off on it. It's not money for old rope. I'm working my bum off. And actually, it doesn't particularly, it's not lucrative in any way. But sometimes it's sort of trusting an instinct. Now, it's interesting that you're at a crossroads again now. Sort of reevaluating where you are. Do you want to talk a bit more about that, or
well, we can do. I mean, I'd be interesting to know your thoughts on this. One of the things I'm evaluating is, well, what do I want the next 10 years to be? For some reason, I feel like, I suppose it's because the business is 10 years old. I'm at this point where I'm thinking, what do I want to do? But I'm also thinking, I don't know whether you find this. There are some things that have come my way more easily than they should have done. Like the fact the book happened, and you know the story behind that. It was reasonably easy that the doors opened for me to get a book published. And on paper, I've got no credibility to do that, and I'm not somebody who those doors would open for easily. Then there are other things that I've been trying to do that should be easier than they are, and it feels like pushing a boulder up a hill. And I'm wondering about, like, when do you know that it's a hard thing that you've got to be resilient through, or when is it a hard thing that you've got to go, do you know what, this isn't working? And I am in a place where I'm looking at all the different things I'm doing and thinking, how do I discern what is hard work but you're going to get the breakthrough? And what, I mean, this is really interesting for creative industry, actually. What about if you're an actor and you're having a lot of knockbacks, which is very normal and par for the course? When do you make the decision to go, do you know what, I need to pivot? Or when do you go, I'm going to keep slogging? Because there are so many stories of people who many years later have a big breakthrough, don't they?
Totally. Yeah.
And
totally.
I'm in that place thinking about, where have I got the energy? And on top of that, just to say, life has been really hard the last year. Like, I am beat. I am just at the end in so many ways, which means my resilience isn't as high, which means I've got to take a step back because I don't want to make rash decisions based on energy levels and not on what's the right thing for me to do. So that's, I want to spend the summer doing some of this thinking, basically, so I can go again.
Yeah, I find that when I go away, I have to turn my phone off, and I nobody contact me, just leave me alone for a week. And I'm not going to respond to a WhatsApp if it's sent.
Yeah.
Because it's when I get distance, I get clarity. So
Me
at Christmas, like last year, I ran a group all year and I really loved it. And then I got to the Christmas break and I thought, everything I was going to do for me has dropped away. I'm not doing that anymore because that is kind of the top of what I'm doing. And as soon as I got some space at Christmas, I had 2 or 3 weeks off. It suddenly became quite apparent to me. I was like, I'm going to do this next year and I'm going to do that next year. And then one night I had a dream, and then I woke up and I thought, what am I doing? I've gone back to doing something that I had left. So having space and distance, but also I think it's a really interesting question as well. I heard Richard Ayoade say a few years ago in stories, it's any film we see, somebody you keep going, you'll get there. That's not true. And I think the older you get, you realise that it's not always just about hard work and perseverance. Kate Winslet has two sisters who she said are both phenomenally talented actors, and they haven't got there. There are only so many people that can. So it's sort of, at what point do you go, let's pivot? Or I know for me, I started acting when I was really young, knew it's what I wanted to do, was so passionate about it. I think the problem for me was I won a place at ITV Workshop. I was one of 25 children out of 800 to be selected to join, and 2 weeks later my mum died. And I think I internalised that a bit as you can't have both. But also I think you're looking at your values and your strengths. I realised that actually the life of an actor doesn't fit me. I don't like the lack of autonomy. I don't like the fact that I have to be called at a moment's notice. I don't like the fact that I need more security than that. I need to know that I'm in charge and not waiting for someone to pick me. I want more creative control. And I think it's really interesting, like you say, you've had a really hard year, real highs and real awful lows. And at what point do you go, like you say, because how long can anybody push for? And we don't know for definite. And it's sort of, I suppose maybe it's how much you really want what you're going after, but maybe, the time in the summer to sort of reflect and take some time and work out, is this where I still think I'm heading? Is this where I want to go?
Yeah, and I think your point there about stepping back, and again, for people listening, I've often found holidays when I have a really great idea.
Yes.
I mean, the whole idea of the Purpose Pursuit was a voice note that I sent on holiday to a friend. You know, that was the first time I had that thought. You know, I think this could be turned into a system that we could use more effectively. And the whole, the creative thought came at that point. And I think when we're at a low ebb and we're not having the space, the combination of those two things are going to be hard in terms of the resilience that we need in whether you work for yourself or not. I think the thing I guess I want to go through a bit of a process of what do I stop, what do I pause, which I may come back to, and what do I continue, and to go through that process a bit. And what do I begin? Like stop, pause, continue, begin. Like what does that look like for this next period of my life? And I don't know whether it's because I'm hitting a phase of life where my youngest son is soon going to be through the school system, and there's a bit of that going on. I've been having these thoughts again about other things that I really care about, and what if I miss the boat to do that? Like, as in, you know, the time, like, is this, what's the next decade about? Is it more of the same, maybe? Or are there some other things that I really care about that I should try and get a bit near? Like, there are things around social equality and the role education plays that are just really important to me. And the fact that people deserve, people from different starts in life to maybe what we may have had, deserve the best education. They deserve the best possible outcomes. And I don't mean around titivating around that on the edges of like, no, there's nothing wrong with it. I just mean I want to do something that feels like it has a real impact in that space. And I can't shift that at the moment.
It's cool.
But again, but it might be that it's just that, I don't know, I get to use what I do to bang that drum a little bit more. It might not be that I need to have a big epiphany and change things. I suppose this rambling that we're having out loud, is it so important to reevaluate? However, I could just carry on. Like I can make ends meet. I've got income that comes in. I do get a lot of enjoyment, and I could just carry on. But I do think it's really important to have stop moments where we go, where's the life on this? What feels easy? Where does it feel like, I'd use the word, a sense of favour? And where does it feel like it's not just hard, it's like this is weirdly hard, and it's harder than it should be based on like circumstance maybe. And that's what I'm kind of reflecting on to make some decisions about. I don't want to waste my time doing things that I'm getting really sick of social media, not going to lie.
Well, do you know
just want to step away completely.
I feel exactly the same, and it's weird because on the one hand, under March House, I really want to build a community, and I love doing this, and I want to have the conversations. I don't want to put anything out that is irrelevant noise. I'm sick of photographs of people's meals. I'm sick of, I'm just like, why am I? And I am somebody. So my husband is brilliant. He can go on his phone, look at it, off a couple of minutes later.
Yeah.
I swear my dopamine is just being hijacked every day. If I go on my phone first thing in the morning, I'm just looking at people living these lives, pretty pictures, and Instagram's my favorite. And then I'm inert for the rest of the day. It's hard work. But also I think I'm 48 now, and I keep having these things of like, oh shit, I'm nearly 50, and like that's like a proper grown up. What do I actually want to do? And it's really weird because yesterday I had a play on 7 years ago, and we were offered a free run at the Belgrade off the back of it, and it led to some amazing opportunities. And we couldn't restage it because of COVID. We were offered this free run, and then COVID hit. And then so yesterday I went to go and see a theatre to go and stage it again, because I thought I'd like to do it one last time before we're all too old for the characters. And I went to look around it, and I was so excited to be in that environment. And then we talked about the money, and then we came out, and I thought, I'm going to have to raise that. I'm going to have to do that. We're not going to get paid very much, if anything, for doing it. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to do it. It excites me, but it's almost like I don't know how long I've got left. Hopefully a really long time.
Yeah.
But what do I actually want to put out into the world? How do I want to make a difference? What do I want to spend the limited time I have doing? Like it's just, there's something very focusing about this time of life, losing relatives, hitting your mid to late 40s. It's really refocusing and how do I want to make an impact? What are my values? And I think it's really interesting. And I do think I can't hear myself unless I step away from everything. I just can't hear. And that's why I find it's so invaluable to come offline at times. And then I go, oh, it's that. Or even journaling. You know, even I journal a lot, and then
So do I.
and then I go, and do you find yourself responding to yourself? Because sometimes I'll write things and I'll be like, well, that's just rubbish. And
Yes,
then
I do.
goes, no, actually, if you stop and think about it, and it's like this other voice in your head saying, no, think about it, you did really well there, and actually that's kind of normal, and don't be so hard on yourself.
It's such a good practice. And when I'm in a better place, I'm journaling regularly. I'm in a better place with things like my phone. The trouble is when you get out of a good rhythm, just like you say, we then find ourselves moving closer towards dopamine on our phone, distraction, especially when we are struggling or tired, or it's just like life is busy or whatever. We move towards the stuff that feels like in the short run just a bit easier. But just like you're saying that I then don't feel as clear. I can feel a bit judgy. I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I'm sick of seeing curated lives that look absolutely perfect. It's not true. I don't want to be here. I don't want to add to this noise. I don't want to be in that space. And then you're like, oh, but you can't just disappear because, you know, can you be a different voice in that space, or you need it for your work? So yeah, stepping back, and then also having conversations with really trusted people who get you, people who are going to ask you the right kind of questions. I mean, we are like the same person, I think, to be honest, in so many ways, and have exactly the same struggles, which is either helpful and I can show empathy, or we'd make each other worse. I can't quite decide. I can't quite decide what would be the best outcome of that. But I mean, I even just, I guess, thinking about, I guess, going back to people listening to this and following this stuff, we've got to follow the threads of like, where do we want to have impact? What is it that we prefer to do? What are our strengths? What is the way that we're wired? And how do we basically do more of that? And other people can look on and say, oh, but you're really good at that. But actually, it's also about what do you want your life to look like? And I think in each season of our life, we do have to reevaluate. There's a book called The Second Mountain. I haven't actually read it, but people have talked about it with me so much that I feel like I have. And The Second Mountain is a concept not based on age, but it often is midlife, but it doesn't have to be, where the things that you prioritize on the first mountain don't feel the right thing for the second mountain. Now, interestingly, I think the book talks about how, because of certain life events, like even you talking about the loss of your mom when you were younger, you can reach second mountain early than you might. Or you might be the sort of person who, from a very young age, has quite a philanthropic outlook on life, and you're only 21 and you already are thinking, I'm not bothered about those things, I want to go after that. So it's not necessarily an age thing, but age will mean a lot of people approach this mountain and start to think some of those things that I thought were important feel less important now. And it involves, again, this reevaluation of what do I want this period of my life to look like. And I don't necessarily think I'm at second mountain, because I kind of think some of that stuff I've approached already, but I do feel like I'm at another little hill, which is saying, what's the next hill about, and what do I want to do? What's the stuff I want to take through intentionally, rather than just by turning, just churn? How do I just not just show up and do? I can't do that. I don't want to live like that. And where do I go? Do you know, I'm not going to do that anymore. I feel like I've got to make some courageous decisions to stop doing some things that, like you said, people go, why would you stop doing that? That don't feel like the right thing to be doing in the next season.
And it's and I find, and I don't know if you're the same, that as I'm getting older, I can hear my voice more, but also I do make slightly braver decisions. Like when I gave up my drama school, it still runs and it's doing really well under two of the brilliant alumni. But I did a whole list of pros and cons, but when I did it, I knew, yeah, this is right. And then when I decided at Christmas, actually, I think this was a brilliant year, but I think it's done. There was quite a bit of surprise, but I just sort of I just knew, like, this is taking me away from other stuff that I want to do. And also, I think so what I found invaluable about working with you was we did this Clifton Strengths test, and it sort of showed me what my strengths were. And what I love about the work that you do is that you talk about leaning into what you're good at and not worrying so much about what you're not so good at. And like, if you're really good at English, then be the best person at English. And if you're not so good at maths, don't worry about it so much. Let's be exceptional at the stuff that we're really good at. But then also what I found really interesting was at the bottom of my strengths report was discipline and consistency, and I find that really interesting. Yeah, we are the same person, Hannah. And that was so good for me to understand, because for a long time I had beat myself up about why can I not say anything for a very long period. Well, I can at some stuff, but why can't? What is it? And it's because you said to me, you're a front end person. You're at the beginning of a project. You've got the ideas and stuff like that. So that's brilliant to understand that. But then couple that with what your values are and what you need. So I'm a bit conflicted or a contradiction. On the one hand, I want a stable income and I want to know that I've got a certain amount of money coming in. And on the other hand, I cannot do the same thing 2 days in a row. So it's sort of like wanting that variety and that stability at the same time. And then the third thing is unwrapping and working out what are your beliefs and what are the beliefs that you grew up with and that filtered
inherited
through and think are yours, but they're not yours, about who you should be and how you should be living your life. And I think something about your late 40s, particularly as a female, when your estrogen starts dropping, you go, actually, I don't think I ever wanted to do that. What was I doing? It's like, and it's sort of unpicking.
Yeah,
it totally. I am.
I think there's a couple of things. Go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, and also I think for me, I still do love acting, but I like creating my own stuff and characters and stuff.
I love it when you do that.
Oh, thank you. Well, actually, what's weird is I put one up a couple of weeks ago, and it has had over 200,000.
Was it one of your talking head type things?
Yeah, I
just love those. You are so good at those. Was it COVID when you started doing it regularly?
Sort of around then, and
the Who Am I? The Who Am I Today? When were you doing that?
Yeah, around maybe a little bit earlier, actually.
Earlier than that. I think it might be. I just loved those. I loved them.
Well, and again, it comes back to the autonomy of doing those kind of things that I really enjoy. But it's
you were saying you put one out the other day.
I was just
autonomy.
That ended up getting putting out some work that I had no intention behind, other than I just said share your work, and then it ended up getting 200,000 views, and I gained 1,000 followers in a week. I was like,
and that's the thing, that was an ease that you didn't expect. Then you can do something else and you think, why is this not getting any kind of traction? Why is this thing that I think, and then something else that I didn't really give that as much thought.
And it's sort of unraveling all of those things and working out where you want to spend your time. And I definitely think this sort of age and unraveling those beliefs that that you've just grown up with and you didn't even realize weren't your thoughts.
No, I think that's really, there's a couple of things there that I would just kind of lean into. One is like, what are the views of the climate you were in, or the people around you, or the really important voices from when you're younger, or even the really important voices now? What are they saying and how helpful is that? We are, there's this whole thing with some of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So are those people saying things that expand you and encourage you to help you grow? It doesn't necessarily mean bigger things. By expand, I don't mean you have to keep having a bigger and bigger platform, because that's not the right thing for everybody. But that they help you see yourself at your best. And where were the certain things that you heard or learned or picked up that have undermined you as well? And that's really important work to do. There were definitely things that I like, for example, and it's meant in a really caring way, but I know, because I'm a little bit frazzled at times, that my sister and my dad will often say, you're too busy, you need to stop doing as much as you're doing. But it's not quite the right advice, because I will always tend towards that, and I will always I want my life to feel full. I have got quite a high capacity to be involved in lots of things. They're right that I need to make some strategic choices about what I'm doing, but sometimes somebody can overlay on you what their life looks like, which could be right for them. My sister is so unbelievably good at managing her time and being much more balanced than me, that I'm jealous of that, but I also recognize that's not me. It's not me. I can learn from her, but I will always have a tendency to be a bit too much and doing too many things and spread too thinly and not being very wise. The other thing to say is a story, which is a story from Warren Buffett, the businessman and philanthropist. So if people haven't heard of Warren Buffett, he's one of he's one of the good guys in the fact that he has made a huge amount of money and given a huge amount of it away. He still drives a car that he's had for a very, very long time, and he still lives in the same house. And he's like a multi, probably billionaire, I don't know, millionaire, I don't know. One of the richest men in the world, but keeps giving it away. And there's a story from him when he was asked about, knowing what you should do and how you should move towards. And I think this is really helpful for values. So he said to this guy, he said, write down all the things that are really important to you. Write a list of 25 really important things, like what really matters to you. And for me, you could think about that in terms of values or priorities or any of that stuff, the things that you want your life to be, right? So write 25 things down. Then he said, do the hard work of deciding what the top 5 things out of those 25 are. So, if you've got that long list and it might be, I'm not even going to go through a list. Everyone knows what those things would be. Now, this is a bit that's interesting. He then said to this guy, he said, you now need to ruthlessly ignore the 20 that you've not circled. Because he said, that is your danger zone. You are not going to be distracted by something that doesn't make your list. So I don't want to be like a multimillionaire living in Beverly Hills. So I'm not going to be distracted by a finance job in the city because it just doesn't, that's not a distraction for me. But a distraction for me might be something that nearly makes my priorities. And they're the danger zone that pull us away from doing the most meaningful work. So I've felt really challenged by that because I think that's kind of where I'm at the moment. There's a little bit too much spread, and that's where my dad and my sister are right. And I need to think, what are those? If I want 5 things on my headstone, what do I want them to be? What do I want them to be? I'm not going to have 25 things on. What are the things that people are going to say, Hannah was this, Hannah was this, Hannah did this with her life? What are they if really push comes to shove? And our age, that's sharpening,
It is sharpening.
It's sharpening. We're entering a really exciting period of our life. We're entering legacy years. We have given so much to our children. We're going to continue to do that all our life. We'll become grannies and nannies one day. But there's also a period of our life now. We are late 40s to 60, where we've got hopefully still loads of energy and space and time to do probably our most meaningful stuff, because we also had our children a bit younger, our children are a bit older. So other people that age range will look different and you might do it. But I think there's a lot of people in our age range who is like, right, what's this about? And I want to get sharper on that. So I think Warren Buffett's advice is really good, to be thinking, where am I being distracted by the nearly really good stuff?
Yeah. And I remember doing this exercise with you a few years ago, actually, and I'd forgotten it. And it's a bloody brilliant exercise because it is sharpening. And actually going back to me talking about doing the play, when I coming out yesterday and thinking, oh yeah, I'll work that out. And then I sat down and thought, it's going to be a hell of a lot of work for what? For, like, I've done it. It would be great. But actually my interests are moving in this direction, and I'm more, and actually it is sort of, it's working out that you can't do everything, unfortunately. And in my Clifton Strengths test that I did with you, ideation was one of my top things, and activator and futurist. And so I'm always, I sometimes feel like my foot gets stuck on the accelerator and I can't stop because there's too many ideas and too much going. And then I'll probably have a small burnout and have to just go and lie on the sofa and not look at anybody for 12 hours. And then I'm all right again. And that is something I have to watch, because I start scrolling when I'm understimulated, and I think that's what happens if I'm not seeing enough people or I do need my own space, but
things. Yeah,
I need some meaningful stuff going on. But it's so, like you say, getting to this age is sharpening, but also, what do you want on your tombstone? What do you want your work to look like? And so coming back to say somebody is feeling stuck creatively, or just doesn't know how to get on a path, where would you advise they start?
I should come to you, I think, because you're full of ideas. I think that's the first thing, is how can you use that idea creation to help other people? I mean, maybe that's part of this. If people are feeling a bit stuck, I think there's a few things they need to do. They need to take a step back and think about, what are the things that most give me life? I think there is that. We've talked about this before. Things like Clifton Strengths is a great tool. People can go find that themselves. We can put it in the show notes where people can go and take that assessment. There's a free assessment.
And can you just explain the Clifton Strengths as well?
Yeah, sure. Clifton Strengths is a online assessment tool which is based around your preferences that you lean towards, which are clues to your natural strengths and talents. It's based on the principle that the things that we enjoy or the things that we prefer are where we are going to become the strongest if we then put our effort and energy. I.e., if you enjoy being with people and then you learn how to do that really, really well, you're going to get the best return on your investment, rather than a person who doesn't love being with people, spending their life trying to sort that, constantly being with others. So it's taking those clues of natural talent and then maximizing them. Clifton Strengths is the best, most nuanced tool out there. It's created by an organization called Gallup. There is a free basic tool in my book that people can use as well, which is at least a starter on that journey. And that's available in there for free. So I would say do that and spend some time thinking about where are the times in my life or the projects I've been involved in, where it doesn't have to be, I don't mean paid, anything, any environment where I've had the most sense of like fulfillment and enjoyment. Times where I feel like, it was easy. I don't mean not challenging, but there was an ease about it and a flow, and gather that data. And on the flip side, you could think about the things where you felt the least like that and the things that felt the hardest for you. And don't underestimate what you're doing there, because I think sometimes we assume everyone's going to say the same things, or that this isn't a clue to our personality, but it really is. I spend a lot of time with people on this and they say very different things. I think the other thing to then do is to reflect on, are your strengths getting what they need? So if you are a person who has a strength like communication, you need people to talk to regularly. Otherwise, you are going to find that difficult. If you're a person who has belief, you need to be working somewhere where you feel like your vision and the values align with your core beliefs. Otherwise, you're going to find that very, very difficult. I mean, we all do, but when you've got that strength, it's particularly hard. If you've got activator, you need to be involved in things where there's momentum and you can actually get things off the ground and you don't constantly feel like you're in a bureaucratic, slow-moving caterpillar organization. If you've got deliberative, you need time to think and to consider. So what are the conditions you need to thrive? That would then come off the back of knowing what your strengths are. And are you getting those conditions? And if you're not, what are you going to do about it? And the what are you going to do about it might be like a shifting the needle. It doesn't mean you have to throw your whole life out of the baby out with the bathwater. Not everyone can do that. What does it look like for you to begin to move, like a bit of a heat map, but to move towards the right direction? Then I would also say you need to think about, what does burnout look like for you? What does it look like when your strengths have gone into overdrive, like you and me, saying that we've got a brain that moves very quickly, but then if we completely don't take care of that, we don't know how to turn our brains off in a way that means that the cortisol is wild, and we're not in a good spot. So what does it look like for you to be in overdrive? And then also your values underlying all of that. What matters to you? Does financial security matter to you? Does philanthropy matter to you? Does adventure matter to you? Does family matter to you? Does in the environment matter to you? Like, all these things can be important, but what are your things? Going back to the Warren Buffett thing, what are the things that, if push comes to shove, matter most? And nobody can tell you what those are. Nobody can tell you what those are except for you. And they might change. Something that you thought mattered when you were younger might not matter anymore. So you've got to reassess that. And I think those building blocks act as data to help you think about, okay, what is a wise thing for me to move towards and try? It doesn't mean you're going to get exactly where you want to be, but it does mean that you will also learn and think, well, I've tried that and that didn't work. I think the other thing I'd say to people is let yourself off the hook of doing things that don't work out as you'd hoped. That's not a waste. I've done loads of things where I thought I'd like that more than I did. I thought that would feel better than it did. I thought this would give me more fulfillment. It hasn't. The foolish thing is to keep doing it. That's the foolish thing, not to have done something that didn't work out. So those are some of the main building blocks I'd tell people to do. Obviously, my book is a bit of a guide through that process. But even if you do that off your own back and just spend some time reflecting on, who am I? I think the last thing I'd say is most people I meet underestimate who they are, and they say to me, "Oh, Hannah, everybody does that. Everybody feels like that," and they just don't. I've just been with a group this morning. I've just done a leadership session, and the people in the room were so wildly different. They were all senior leaders, and And there is such an easy assumption to think that everybody sees things the way I do. Everyone noticed that person upset. Everyone noticed that problem. They didn't. You did. And until you do the work of knowing what those things are, you are underestimating or underappreciating the contribution that you make. So I work with a lot of people who've got very low confidence, and they're amazing individuals that have so much to contribute, but for whatever reason, they don't really have the language for it. And Clifton Strengths is a really, really easy way to start getting clarity and language that's much more specific than just woolly words.
And I think I think about, I mean, it's mad the impact that test had on my life, because I found it quite freeing to know, okay, these are my top 10 strengths, and actually they make sense. So let's try and build a career more around those things. But also what was really liberating was my bottom ones, you know, and I know you said, you know, these strengths, is it 36 or 33 strengths?
34.
There are 34 strengths, and we've got them. They're all there, but the ones at the bottom are the ones that you can do, but you will find harder. So my bottom two are discipline and consistency. And to know that is such a relief, because you go, okay, I've got a day of admin. I feel rubbish at the end of it. Why? Because I'm not an admin person. I don't enjoy it. I'm happier to do this. I want to be chatting and curious and meeting people and having ideas. I do enjoy those days sometimes, don't get me wrong, but it's also going, okay, if you're building something, well, maybe at some point I'm going to need someone to support me with that. Maybe that's not what, you know, that's where somebody could take some weight from me and would be better at that than me. I think it's really interesting as well, because my husband did the test as well. And I know we've discussed this, we're quite opposite. The only one we've both got in our top 10 is positivity. But apart from that, his top two are discipline and consistency. And we're like, opposite.
What a dream team you are.
And that's what's so interesting as well, because like you say, you get in a room with people and everybody thinks everybody's got the same knowledge and the same skill set, and they really don't have. And that's why a lot of marriages are opposite people with opposite skill sets, because that just works better.
Absolutely. It's why you can drive each other mad in certain situations, but it's also why you can be a dream team of like supporting, seeing things from the different perspectives, and bringing the balance. We aren't supposed to bring balance to ourselves. I think we need other people to help bring balance. I'm not sure if we spend our lives trying to be like an all-rounder, I just think you lose your power and your edge if that's what you're trying to be. If I just keep trying to like minimize and, you know, I'm going to pull that in, I'm going to try and be more of that, I'm just spending my life trying to become a blob rather than something that's got like sharp points that are useful and massive gaps. I've got massive gaps. But being aware of them, I mean, I just find it really difficult to do things like take vitamins every day. That I don't know why. I find that so absurdly hard to do. And yet for my children, if they had to take like when my son had a knee operation recently, I was absolutely religious about everything he needed to take till he was better. Can I do that for myself? No. And that puzzles me. And I'm currently trying to think, what's the hack? What's the hack I need to use based on my personality to get me to do something that I don't want to do? So if I can just quickly say that, it doesn't mean we can't have an admin day if we're not like that, or we can't do these things. But what's the hack that helps us use our personality in order to do the things we find more difficult? So if somebody's got to go to a networking event and they really hate that kind of thing, what's the hack using their strengths to help them get through that event and to do it in a really positive way? There's always a way through. And there's got to be a way for me to learn to take my vitamins every day and actually do that effectively. I've just got to think, what's the personality hack to help me do that? And I'm not quite sure yet. I've got to figure it out.
But I leave my vitamins in a pot on top of the coffee machine. I don't actually drink coffee, but they're right there in the morning. So I am getting better. I would say currently I'm on about 4 or 5 days out of 7.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
I still forget. And it is tricky, but you're right. It's how you hack those things. I interviewed a brilliant artist a few weeks ago for this, Nadia Atora. She's an amazing artist, and it's so interesting how she works. She said, I'm no good at admin, I don't enjoy admin, but if I start the day with admin, it'll take me 4 or 5 hours, and then I don't paint. So what I do is I flip it, I get up, I paint, I go till like 1 or 2 o'clock, have some lunch, and then I do my admin in half an hour, because that's all I've got, and it means I get it done.
She's sharp. Yeah,
She's
that's
sharp.
good.
And because she knows then she's got a restricted period of time, but she's also created. And I thought that's really true, because if you give me half an hour, I'll do it. And if you give me 5 hours, I'll do it. And so actually that's quite a good hack.
I'm the same. Laura
to
said
just
that about
get it
me.
done.
She said you can either get 8 hours worth of work done in an hour, or you will take 8 hours to do an hour's worth of work.
I'm exactly the same.
I can be unbelievably boom, 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 boom. But if I am not there, I can take forever to do it.
And
so
it's
I think the
painful.
more I've got a restricted, if I'm under a deadline, I'm better than ever.
I'm exactly the same, and it's a horrible feeling, because I give myself a really hard time about it. I'm like, what are you doing? I've even written notes. Once you've finished your emails, just go and do something else.
Yeah.
But then I almost don't know what to do. Like,
I know.
go. Why don't you read a book or go and do some gardening? And I'm like, no. I'm sort of a bit lost, like floating around, not sure what to do. And so if I do take a long time to do anything, and it's a bit like pulling teeth, I don't know, I just become really morose and sort of frustrated with myself. Like, what are you doing? Come on. But again, the Clifton Strengths test is good, because you go, okay, it's just not the way I'm made, and we can't all be made the same way, because the world wouldn't work if it was that way, you know. You wrote a book, a brilliant book. Can I just say, here it is, The Purpose Pursuit. And can I just say, Hannah, I've got a quote for your next book. All killer, no filler, Hannah Miller.
I love that. Thank you. I love that. That's so kind.
And it's such a brilliant book. How the hell did you do a book? Like, how did you do it? Did you approach people? Were you approached? What did you do? Write it?
In terms of getting the contract, I had a contact with somebody who I didn't realise worked in the right publishing area, was a contact of a friend, and I said, could I meet you for lunch? She had actually moved into self-development non-fiction, which was quite a coincidence. This is one of those things about the ease. So that was an accidental connection with someone that if I'd have known she was in the right area, I might have not had the confidence to reach out, but I did. We had a lunch together. She told me more about the whole field. She was very honest with me of how unlikely it would be that I'd get a contract. I haven't got a large social media following. I don't have a big platform. I'm not famous. And that so much self-development stuff goes into that space now. We can all think of the books that have come out in that space and that genre, because they're ready-made, going to sell to their audiences online. However, she said to me, please send me your book proposal over and your sample chapter, because I'd love to give you some advice and I can point you in the next direction. It was very that kind of conversation. And then she said to me, I sent your sample chapter to a few people who really liked it. So I'm just going to have another look at this and come back to you. Then she said she's going to take it to an internal pitch meeting. And then very, very shockingly, a few months later in the summer, August of this time 2 years ago, she said, we'd like to offer you a publishing contract, which I nearly fell off. I was in the garden. I remember it clearly. Laura was actually filming me because she'd seen who it was on the phone, and she'd got a video out to, and I'm going, oh, I can't believe I'm having this phone call. So that's how the contract happened. If people are thinking about writing a non-fiction book, there's a woman called Penny Windsor who's brilliant at helping people with book proposals. I just want to give her a shout out. Penny Windsor. She runs an online community. I think it's called Too Busy Not to Write, or I've just totally made that up. I don't know what her community's called. I don't have a clue. Penny Windsor is her name. She's an author herself, and she helped me with the book proposal process. And I would recommend her. And also, I need external accountability. So once I've got it, I'm much better. So then they said to me, right, I'd already got a structure. I'd done all the hard work on the structure. And if you're doing a non-fiction book, that is, and I'm a teacher. So I actually found the process of writing. People kept saying, I'm not saying this to blow my own trumpet, but I am going to be honest. The editors were like, this has been really light editing. It's really good. I didn't have loads and loads of editing to do. And I don't know whether that's because the concepts I'd spent a long time on, or whether I talk a lot for a living, so I write like I talk, or perhaps because I've got a teaching background, I didn't find structure difficult. So those things I didn't find hard. But what I did was, she said to me, right, we've got a first draft deadline, a second draft deadline, and a third draft deadline. And I said, no. If I have a first draft deadline, I will be doing most of the draft about 2 weeks before the deadline, and I will have a nervous breakdown. I need chapter deadlines, because if you give me chapter deadlines, I will, although they are slightly imaginary, I like to please, I will meet the chapter deadlines. So that was a bit of a personality hack, that I was like, please don't give me a first draft deadline. Please, can we break this down? So then we worked out a chapter deadline for the first draft to be complete. And I hit every single one of those targets, because I love to please people, and it gave me sprints within it that I could work with. And some days, some days I'd sit there and write 2 words. Other days I'd be like, oh my goodness, I've written so much today. I've really made good progress. And you can't always control that, can you? Like, some days are just like, oh, I really thought I'd get somewhere today, and it's actually rubbish, and I've just deleted words. I've got nowhere. And sometimes I found the edit. So then when it was second draft, I found the editing a bit difficult. So if I did have some edits and it would say, can you rework this a bit? Like, a lot of what they would say is, yes, but why? Push the why, push the why. Or they'd say, I think you need to reorder some of the chapter. I found that really hard. I don't love detail work. I like the throw it all down at the page. I want somebody else to do the actual hard work. And I'd be like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't have to write this again. It's fine as it is. I'm a bit lazy with that. So the due diligence that they put me through made the book better. I'm really grateful for that, because I am not an editor. I am definitely more of a big picture writer, and they definitely made the book better. So that's how we went through the process. The second draft, then the third draft, then the third draft goes off to a copywriter who's checking that it all makes sense. And then they come back with final edits. Then they go through it with a fine-tooth comb to check for any. It's amazing how many books still have typos, even when it's been through all of that process. So they went through that. And here we are. When you are with a big publishing house like I was, there are some negatives, which are, obviously, if I'd self-published, it's my book and I'm in control of the whole narrative around that. You can pay for Amazon ads, you can do all of that. You can push it in a certain way. But I obviously have the kudos of saying it's been through this process that means that I'm being published by a publishing house, so that it has its pros and cons. I'm also very small fry in the big scheme of the Richard Osmans of the world. I am low down the pecking order. Plus my editor, my commissioning editor, went on mat leave. So I was then babysat by somebody, and the other person in my team moved to the Netherlands. So my 2 champions left the team, which was a bit hard, because it meant that it's not the same when you're caretaking something, is that you don't feel the same about it. And they didn't. But it's coming out in paperback in December. So my person's back from mat leave, and I'm excited to work with her again in the run-up to the paperback, which is obviously more of a mass market push. There's a different front cover. They've gone for a different artistic direction. And we'll see what happens. But again, going back to that, and I think with anything which is a creative process, if people keep saying to me all the time, how's the book going? And what they mean is, how many have you sold? That's basically, what else do they mean? What am I going to say? I mean, it's an inanimate object. I can't. The only thing I can tell you,
stationery on my shelf.
It's how's it going? It's out there. I get updates on figures once every 6 months. So the last time I got figures, the book had been out 2 weeks. I haven't had a second set yet, which will be any day now probably. But I really did have to make peace with the fact that if I chased success being around the metrics, I am not in full control of that. No. There are magic things that could happen, that this book could get in the hands of a real mover and shaker, and it really moves things forward. But I can't. I can do things, but I can't, I definitely can't. Going back to your point about Kate Winslet's siblings, I'm in exactly the same position, that I think this is a good book. Everybody who's read it is giving it really good reviews, but I can't control whether we sell 1,000 or 10,000 or 1 million. I can't completely. So I had to make my peace that for me, what did I want to do? I wanted to put something out there that I felt proud of, that I felt I'd worked hard on, and that would definitely benefit the people's lives who read it. And so when people ask me how the book's going in terms of numbers, I really struggle to answer that question. I don't really know what to say because one, I don't actually know. That is the genuine answer. I will know in about a month, but I don't really know at the moment. And also I don't know whether I want to get drawn into that as a measure of it. This is something that I had to do. I had to do it regardless of whether anybody wanted it or not. And I don't think I'm trying to just cover myself from rejection. I think I'm genuinely trying to see it that way.
And do you know what? And I think around creativity, we have to do that because you have to have an element of letting go. All you can control is that the work that you put out, like you say, you are proud of. Going back to, you know, I put out some characters years ago on Facebook called Who I Am Today, and they did reasonably well. But then I chucked one out 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it sort of went. I've never been so inundated, and yes, it was the same sketch, and it just, you don't know how anything's going to land. But also, what that then did was make me go, oh God, I'm gonna have to make something else, and now there's a level of expectation, and it made me realise you do have to just go. I'm not, like, I can't control that. I remember when I was 18, we did a showcase in London at the Groucho Club, which was amazing, and I got picked up by a really, really good agent, and I was there with Samantha Morton and Lucy Davis from The Office and Alison Hammond, and there was a whole load of us, and I did loads of telly for 2 or 3 years, and then in the late 90s, then reality television started coming in, and suddenly there was just not so much. It was all changing rooms and stuff like that, just cheap. And I remember being
changing rooms,
I know, awful pink walls, Lawrence Llewellyn Bone fopping around.
Oh my gosh.
But there was loads of, that's when reality television kicked in. And suddenly there was just less auditions and stuff, and I found it really challenging. But I remember being in the pub, and there would be like people from the year above or 2 years above that would be coming up to me going, oh, what are you in now? I saw you in the bill, and I saw you in, what are you in now? And I'd be like, oh, well, I'm not doing anything at the moment. And you'd see this kind of, and I imagine it's the same with like, how's your book doing? People want
they do.
And if there isn't that, it doesn't mean you're not proud of the work that you did, but it's a hard pill to swallow, because you can feel their sort of slight switching off, disappointment, and that is quite hard when you've created something, you've put it out there, and it's vulnerable, and then people are determining its success on how much money did you make, are you on this morning, are you on the cover of the New Yorker, are you know what I mean? It's quite a hard thing to balance.
It is, because of course I can't say I don't want it to be a success, because that would be a madness,
and
that
is
would be
an
a
incredible
stupid
book.
thing to say. Of
It
course,
is
I'd love it to be in the airport, you know, so people read it when they. Of course, I would, but I also can't base everything on that, because I don't care what people say about, you can, when people have a big break, it is definitely not just about them. There's a huge amount of luck. There's a huge amount of just right place, right time, and all of that. And yes, something's got to be good for it to have a big break. But at the same time, there is really good stuff out there that's undiscovered, like things that don't get the space that they want to. So I think for me, I'm trying to make a fine line of protecting myself from not wanting to have an unrealistic expectation, and also not wanting to then also, I don't know, settle and not try to make it the best it can be. But I don't always know how to answer the how's the book, because it feels like I'm then just jumping into a narrative that things only matter if they're scaled.
Yes.
And I think that's quite hard.
It is. It's a really hard thing, and something that I think if you're not creating things in that way, it's hard not to grasp. You sort of feel like you're failing, and
totally
from the question and the response, and that's almost circles us right back to the beginning of, when do you know when to stop? When do you know what you want to do? When do you know? But I do want to say, if anybody does want to read this, it's a bloody brilliant book. I so enjoyed it, and I refer to it, and I listened to it as well. And you read it so beautifully. Perhaps
I loved reading it. I loved it. I loved doing the audio.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would, because it's a lot of concentrating, but I did really enjoy that. It was a really fun experience.
Well, you did it so well, and it's a fantastic book, and it's a really helpful book to refer back to. I've had you for an hour. It's been so lovely to talk to
I've
you. If
loved to
people want
talk
to
to
work
you.
with you, how do they go about that? Where do they find you?
Well, my website is hellosidekick.co, as in sidekick, not a psychic, as in coming alongside someone. And I'm on Substack and I'm on Instagram, and it's Hello Hannah Miller. So if you find me in those places, you can always message me and get in touch with me that way. Either of those will work.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for giving me
Thank
your time today.
you.
Whilst we're melting, I'm going to be puddles by the end of the day.
I know. We need to go and have a big old hydration now.
I really hope that you took something from that conversation. As I say, I think it's really hard and tricky to build a life as a creative when it can be so difficult to know how to make money at that. And a lot of stuff can sometimes be unpaid. I'm all about building a life that pulls on all of those different strengths. And the Clifton Strength test that I did with Hannah, I think about every day. I cannot begin to tell you how invaluable that has been, to the point where I've actually thought about training in it. I think it sort of shows a mirror up to who you are, but also who you are not. And that is so incredibly freeing to go, I'm not somebody who can do the same thing day in, day out. That's not who I am. That's fine. But I am these things. And these are bloody brilliant strengths as well. But those ones aren't mine. I just find that really, really freeing and enabling, helping me move forward. Sorry, can you hear my dog? She's having a little snuffle. She's 13. She was 13 the other day, and she's a little bit elderly now, bless her. Her name is Nancy. She's gorgeous. So yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed the conversation. Hannah's book is amazing, The Purpose Pursuit. I did the book launch for her last year. I was one of the hosts of the evening, and I had to read the book beforehand, obviously, to be aware of what we were talking about. And I knew it would be good, but it really, really was fantastic. And so please do check that out if you're feeling a little lost and confused, or just, enjoy that kind of stuff, and check out her page and everything on Instagram. I'll put the details below. I'm back next week with James Capel, who is the founder of Scribe Lounge, I believe, I should double check this, it's the UK's #1 online community for writers, screenwriters and playwrights. It's completely free. It's an amazing thing that he set up, and he is also a screenwriter and a playwright himself. I loved my conversation with James. Yeah, we spoke for an hour, but I say this all the time, and I do genuinely mean it. But I didn't know James beforehand, so it was really nice to get into the minutiae of writing. And yeah, it's a really good conversation. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, please do like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. It helps people find us. I mean, I say us, I just mean me. It's me doing this. One day it'll be a huge team. And also just makes me feel good. It's good to know, it's good to have feedback. It's good to have feedback, but please just a nice feedback, because I'm in the early days and, I'm a human being. Anyway, I'll see you next week. Have a lovely week. Lots of love.